Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be giving an overview of Assignar estimating. So Assignar estimating is a web-based, cloud-based budget management solution that can be used by contractors both during the pre-construction phase and during the operational phase of a project. You can use it to develop highly detailed first principle estimates for bidding purposes, and you can also manage and control those estimates and budgets during the construction phase of a project. So in the platform, all projects are organized into so-called workspaces. And as an individual or as an organization, you'll typically have one workspace, and within that workspace, you will be storing all of your projects, and you can organize those projects according to the folders as well. So for today's video, I've set up a small house example demo project, which we can launch simply by double-clicking on it, which then launches the project workbench for us. And you'll notice that in the platform, we have these primary navigation bars and secondary navigation bars on the left that you can expand and collapse, and you can launch any of the modules simply by clicking on any of these navigation tabs. Right, so in Assignar, we'll normally start from a BOQ, or a bill of quantities as we call it in the platform. And this is basically a collection of all the line items that you need to price for this specific project. So I've already identified this and set this up. As you can see, I've structured my BOQ according to different sections. We've got earthworks, masonry, plumbing and so forth, and we can actually browse the BOQ according to these sections as well. And within these sections, I've got my BOQ items, which will typically consist of description, quantity, unit of measure, and so forth. And as you can see, I've actually gone ahead and already priced most of these items. So in Assignar, the net rate is the cost to the company. And this is not just the plug rate, there's actually calculation sheets sitting behind each of these items, where we've done a full resource breakdown of the specific rate. And then we've also got a selling rate column where you can add profit to your net rate to achieve selling rate, which is how you're going to sell it for the client. So I've left one of these items unpriced, the plastering of the interior walls, and I'm going to walk you through this process of pricing this item. So I'm going to launch the plastering by double clicking on it, and that opens the item editor. As you can see, we have the BOQ item with a worksheet that is currently blank and unpriced. So in Assignar, all rates are built up from so-called first principles, and what that means is we basically break the items into the individual resources and the production rates necessary to actually construct this item on site. So when we do the plastering on site, we will most likely need a plasterer with some general labour to help him. And we will need mortar, which might be a mixture of different materials, cement, building sand, building water, and so forth. So Assignar provides you with a resource module where you can define all of the resources that you need for a specific project. And this resource list is completely user-defined and customizable so that you can really create resources for everything that you need in your project. So you'll see we've got general labour, we've got our materials listed here, and this resource list can get quite extensive. So Assignar provides you with good filtering capability so you can very quickly tag items and filter items out. So if, for example, you want to see plumbing materials, you can simply match that and it filters your plumbing materials for you, right? And you can also import resources from Excel. And ideally what you'd want to do is actually import resources from one of your previous pricing libraries, so that you don't need to redefine this resource list for every project. But the idea is to attach these resources to your bid items, and then the platform will calculate the rate for you. So there's an insert function which gives you access to all of your resources that you've defined, and you can either select the resource and insert it or simply double click on a resource and it will appear in the worksheet. Okay, so let's add in a comment in here to specify that this is all labour. And now we still need to add the material. But in this case, the material mortar is actually a combination of 3 different resources. Mortar consists of cement, building sand and building water, and we might be reusing mortar at a few different places in this project. And we don't necessarily want to have a pool in all of the individual resources, but every single time we need mortar. So in Assignar, we've got a module called clusters, where you can actually build up teams of reusable resource units, which we call clusters. I've already defined mortar, and you'll see that I've defined mortar to be a combination of building sand, cement, and building water, and I've specified my mixing ratios. And now we have the cost of mortar per cube. So we can reuse this mortar in any of our calculation sheets where we need it. So if we go back to our BOQ item and we open up the insert option, you'll see that right at the bottom there is an insert form clusters option where we can access all of the clusters in this project. So if I double click on mortar, it automatically brings in mortar, and it also brings in all of the children of mortar associated with it. Okay, so the plastering needs to be priced per square, but currently these resources and clusters are not priced per square. So you're provided with transform column, where you can fill in any formulas to transform these rates and these units to match the rate. But if you've already priced plastering in the previous project, there's no need to reprice it. We can actually just access one of your previously priced plastering items and pull that worksheet into this project. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to open up the Insert tab, and instead of inserting from my local project, I'm going to be choosing from one of my libraries that I've attached to this project as a data source. And we can then search here and see, do we already have plastering in this project? Yes, we do. So if I insert that, it automatically brings in the fully priced worksheet from a previous project. So you can then adapt this for your local project. So maybe in this case, you only have 3 general labourers working on the site, and automatically the unit rate is then calculated for you for this plastering item. In this equation, you'll notice that we have the unit transformations in square brackets, and that basically just a comment for you as the estimator to understand what you did, or to remind site agents what those calculations actually mean. Okay, so once you've gone through the process of pricing all of these individual items, you'll have the net rates for all of your items, and we can then assign some profits to this job or markup. So Assignar has a markup tab, and there's a host of different ways in which you can assign markup. You can either do it individually, or you can mark up items according to trades, or according to WBS, or however you want to. But for today's example, I'm just going to add basic markup of 10% globally to all of these items. Alright, so what that does is it takes your net rates, adds 10%, calculates the selling rate, and automatically you've got a selling amount for the total project, which is what you're going to be selling to the client for. Right, but the real power from the platform actually comes from once you've already set up those estimates, and once you start looking at all of the reports that you can generate on a very detailed resource level. So let's jump to our resources module. And I've already set up a tender finalization report for us. But the reports are fully customizable and user defined. But there you can see the platform automatically calculates the quantity of each resource that you need for this job and the amount of money you're allowed to spend on those resources. So you can see we need to purchase 25 litres of diesel, and we're allowed to spend $35 on that diesel. We need to purchase 11,000 bricks, and that's our budget for the bricks. So this is obviously very handy for procurement purposes, and also for your accounting department to understand how much of each individual resource they need to procure and what their budget is. So if you want to send some of this off to suppliers, we obviously don't want them to see our estimated numbers. So we can switch those columns off. Once again, I've already defined the report for that, where we just show the resource and the quantity we need. So let's say, for example, we want to speak to some roofing and material suppliers. So I can filter out my roofing material resources, and this gives us an indication of how much the roofing materials that we need. So I can then export this. So our reporting is what you see. What you see is what you get. So if you switched on certain columns or switched them off and you filtered the data set, it's going to print whatever you are seeing in front of you. You can customize the header to put your own logo in there, change the file type to Excel, PDF, or whatever format you want to. I'm just going to download this as a PDF. As you can see, it generates a little report for you with the data set that you were seeing. So you can send this off now to different suppliers and ask them for quotes. And if they then send those quotes back to you, the platform actually also provides you with a module where you can adjudicate and compare those different quotes from different suppliers. So you'll see there's a procurement module, and within the procurement module, you can define your own suppliers. Or you can choose from suppliers from a global list or define suppliers. And then you can actually set up adjudications where you can compare different quotes from different suppliers. So I've already set up the roofing material adjudication. And here I've pulled in all my roofing materials, and I've pulled in quotes from both Bob's Building suppliers and from CT Hardware, and they've given me their different rates for these specific items, which we can compare and then see that CT Hardware is going to be the cheapest. If we buy all of our roofing materials from them, so if you're happy with that, you can apply that adjudication. And you can select the supplier with the lowest quote total. And if you click apply, what's it going to do? It's going to take CT Hardware's rates, and it's automatically going to bump them into your resources rates, and your full estimate will be updated with the latest rates. So it's a very efficient way for you to quickly apply rates from different suppliers. And similar to our supplier adjudication module, Assignar also provide you with a so-called subcontractor adjudication module, where you can define your subcontractors, you can subcontract to it, and then adjudicate the quotations and apply them to your bid from different subcontractors. Right, so that's really the estimating side of things. But what Assignar can do for you as well is it can integrate your planning tools into your existing planning tools such as Microsoft Project or Primavera P6 or whatever tool you're using. So we can automatically calculate the duration of each of these items based on your specified production factors. So I'm actually going to switch that on and show you that we can actually see the duration that you're supposed to be spending on each of these items based on your estimated production rate. So as you can see, it should not take us longer than 8 hours to complete 6 cubes of the foundation. And we can then export this to our scheduling tools. And this will then automatically set up a list of activities for us. One activity is generated for each BOQ item with the correct duration, and they'll automatically be fully resource loaded for you. So I've already done this. So I could just show you what this would look like. So as you can see, I've got a Microsoft Project file here where we have activities for each BOQ item with the correct durations already populated. So this gives you a nice parity of information between your planners and your estimators. And your planner can then action all of this critical with path planning and linking of activities with any of his preferred tools of choice. We can actually also import the fully scheduled out plan back into Assignar and then give you a resource for cost or quantity spread over time. So we can, for example, view the 6-month forecast of how much quantity you're going to be using for each individual BOQ item within the upcoming months. And we can also see and run reports against any of these forecasts. So if you want to understand what your resource requirements are going to look like in March, what your cash flow situation is going to look like, we can easily give that to you. So I'm just going to jump into my resources and let's switch on the 6-month quantity forecast here. And then based on your plan and based on your estimate, you can see that you need to procure 500 bricks in January, 3,000 bricks in Feb, and so forth. So this is very useful for planning and procurement purposes. And we could show you the same numbers for amounts so that you can understand what your cash flow requirements are going to be for the following months. Okay, so that's really the pre-construction side of things. But as mentioned, the platform can also be used during the construction phase to manage your budget and track your budget and control your budget, which is very powerful. So the way in which you can do that is you can go to your BOQ and we allow you to create any different tracking quantity columns here. Then you can capture your progress against what you can report against. So once again, I've actually set up a progress tracking view for myself. And here you can see that I've captured my monthly progress. So let's just say at the end of the month 1, I've completed 2 cubes of foundation, 7 cubes of the backfilling, and so forth. So my site agents or project managers can update this continuously. They can capture this daily if they wanted to, or monthly or whatever. And then we can automatically produce your monthly payment certificates based off these numbers, and they can send off to your client for billing. But more importantly, is we can also show you where you're or should be standing from a budgeting point of view. On a resource level, that's really good. Actually, I'm going to start at a higher level than the resource level. I'm going to start at the resource attribution level. So let's just understand, if that is the progress that I've completed, how much money am I allowed to spend on fuel, labor, or materials up to this point in the project? So I'm going to switch on my progress analysis report here. And you can see that up to this date on this project, based on what we've completed and based on our original estimate, we should not have spent more than $2,600 on labor up to date, and we should not have spent more than $1,900 on materials up to date. So basically, what you can do is compare all of this to your actuals, which you can get from your operations platform or your ERB, and try and understand where you are overspending, underspending, estimating on labor. You can very easy then drill down further into your resource list, and we can say, let's switch on similar report here. We want to look at our progress analysis, and we're interested in labor. That's where the issue is. So let's filter out a little on labor. And here we can see that we should not have had a plasterer on site as of yet. We should not have had a carpenter on site. The general labourer should not have been on site for more than 16 days, and the bricklayer should not have been on site for more than 1.8 days, for example. So if you pick up at this point that we already paid way more for wages for the bricklayer, then there's obviously been an issue. It might have been a production, or they may have been rain delays, but you can very easily then interrogate the system and find out where the bricklayer is being used in this project by doing a find and replace. And you can easily see all of the different items where the bricklayer is used. You can dive into those items and try and understand exactly what's going wrong, or at least notify your personnel to monitor those items for more closely going forward, so that you can pull back your actions to be closer to your budget as you're progressing through the project. Right, so that's a really brief overview of the platform, and I hope it's been helpful in terms of understanding the capabilities of the system, and also showing the power of the platform for effective cost management as a contractor. Thanks so much for joining, and let the team at Thrive know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot.